I'm not one that tries to go overboard with it, but y'all knocked it out of the park.
So I'll just start with for people who don't know, where is it that you went? Where did you go on your trip?
Oh, so we were in Portugal and we spent 3 days hiking through the midsection of Portugal. And then we were transported to the coastal region and we did the Fisherman's Trail for another 3 days. Walking along the coast of Portugal, I mean, I mean, every time it was like it was an Instagram moment every time you go another turn and you're looking at these sheer cliffs. And we have bluebird days every day on the coast, hiking the Fisherman's Trail. Um, I mean, that was spectacular. Just looking at those views with the waves crashing in.
Yeah. And I was reading in your review that you've been on a trip with with other tour operators before, and
We
that
did it.
this surpassed the expectation. And I was
Oh
just
my God.
wondering, what was the main difference?
My group of friends and I, we're pretty adventurous, and we understand that to do these types of trips, you got to have a bit of an adventurous spirit and kind of, take things as they come. Um, but when we first started emailing back and forth with Pura, I just kind of had this different vibe, that there was a little bit more hand holding going on. And then once we arrived in Portugal, I mean, to be met by someone locally, Fernanda, who was amazing. And I think I mentioned in the review that it was almost like he had this private concierge service. It was always, the hand holding was just enough, was a
Yeah.
good way to put it.
Not too much that it took away from the adventure,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
enough to make you feel like, you've got someone there on your
Yeah.
side that can help you. Because one of the
Yeah.
things that I wanted to ask about is the thing that we love at Pura is people. That's the thing
Mhm.
that drives all of us to work in this job. It's why we love travel. It's for the people and the places. But so one of the things I wanted to ask was there any interesting people that you met when you were there? Um,
Oh, I mean, there's tons of interesting people. When you go into a country, I feel like the slow travel, either on the seat of a bicycle, going into the little villages, or hiking these just ungodly beautiful areas. I mean, through those cork forests were just crazy. That's when you really get to you get a feel for what a country's all about, kind of what the inside is. And so we'd be hiking along these little trails and we'd be coming around the corner and there would be this older gentleman. This guy was awesome. And he was probably in his 70s and he's got this little small plot of vegetable garden. And he's with an ancient implement that had to be older than I am, that he's hoeing his little garden. And we come around the corner and we stop and we talk, and at least we try to talk. It's one of those conversations where you, you get the gist of what is being said back and forth, even though you don't understand the language at all. But just through the smiles and the mannerisms, yeah, well, I mean, we stopped there and just chatted with this guy, semi-chatted, and just pointing out his vegetables and his flowers for probably 30 or 40 minutes.
You mentioned that it was somewhere that you really felt welcomed as a tourist,
Yeah,
compared
very
to
well.
other times. What do you think was it that made you feel like welcomed?
The people were just very patient, with the language. You just kind of felt like you had that real personalized service, and people were glad that you were there. Yeah, everywhere we felt that. I mean, even tucking into the little, cafes and the villages as we would stop to take a lunch. Yeah, everybody was just a lot of smiles. People were outstanding. We wanted to go into another village for dinner, and the proprietor said, "Well, I only have one van, and I can take you, but it only seats like eight." And we're like, "Oh, that's no big deal. We're close." Well, so we piled everybody up in the van. A couple of people back in the I think y'all would call it the boot, back in the trunk, and they took us around the corners like a 10-15 minute
Yeah.
with a little bit of a walk, but it was raining that evening, so he threw us all in the van.
And with the trip, is there anything that you would have changed or anything that you didn't love?
No, not really.
Oh, that's
No.
good to hear.
When you do these, Yeah, I've traveled enough to know that if you want to get off the beaten path, then you're going to be in smaller areas. And smaller areas may not have, five-star amenities, but I mean, some of the places we stayed, which I think were kind of termed 2 or 3 star hotels, were wonderful. I mean, places I would go back to a second or third time. We kind of felt like that other than the cork trees, which were fascinating, and we actually learned a lot about the cork. Um, but you felt like you were making a positive impact on the local economy being there. But then we were also amazed at the fact that in all of this, the 3 days of hiking through the middle portion of Portugal, we saw one other couple. And we're like, oh, why are not people out here on these trails? I mean, the trails were amazing. I mean, you're in the middle of these forests and cutting through the back acres of small farms. And, we've got the donkeys that are following us along, and maybe we shouldn't have, but we had saved a few apples. She's a sucker for any type of animal. So, we're feeding the horses and feeding the donkeys, and we had a couple of dogs that would just kind of trot alongside of us. And at one point, we were scared we were going to have to backtrack to get this one dog back home. But came across somebody, go, oh, no, no, he's fine. He's fine. We see him all the time. But there weren't that many people out. And it's like, wow, what a resource that needs to be used. I mean, because for folks that want to be active and continue to be active, we have this little joke in our group that one day we probably will be doing, riverboat tours, but until that point happens, I mean, we're going to keep moving,